Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon for many of you, good evening. So wherever you're joining me from here in the world, welcome to A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm Tomas Garza, your host, and I am back, as you can see, here in my home office in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, I want to thank all of you who tuned in last week while my wife Cindy and I were out traveling. We were in Atlanta, Georgia for a business conference for Cindy's business, and it was really wonderful. I got to broadcast live from our hotel room, and it was beautiful. If you missed those shows, they're really fun. In one of them, there is a fire alarm test and drill. So you get to hear for free the very functional intercom system at the Atlanta Marriott Marquis. Who knew, right? Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things actually about doing live streams, live radio, live television, whatever it is you never know what's going to come up. I've got some really fun stories. I've had some really beautiful and fun experiences starting out in live radio. I'm a podcaster, and my very first show for the first 6 months was live on Om Times Radio, and we had barking dogs, we had doorbells ringing, we even had a train that went by in a neighborhood that I lived in with the whistle, complete with the long whistle and the sound of the cars going along the tracks. Absolutely nothing that can be done about that. It's live and it's cool. So anyway, thank you all for joining me. Now, these past episodes that I'm talking about are available on Enlightened World Network's YouTube channel. It's Enlightened World Network, and each and every show on the network has its own playlist, and this is A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. You can find all of the past episodes dating all the way back to January of this year. So this is well over 100 episodes. Today we're on lesson 136 in the workbook for students, and I would estimate that there are probably 160, 165 shows that we've done since January here. So it's been a lot of fun to be with you here on this network. And I really appreciate all of you tuning in, your comments and questions especially, because this is what I want to do as a teacher, is show up and provide a forum for some safe and hopefully fruitful dialogue here. Spiritual practice can and indeed should raise as many questions as it does answers. And as we go forward and reawaken, as we make what we call or consider to be progress or steps along the path, a lot comes up for us. So what I want to invite you to do, and I encourage you to do this, is if you have comments here, even if it's just to say hello, I would appreciate that as well. Pop in the comment thread here and let me know how you're doing, where you're joining us from. If you have comments or questions about today's material, this is a very good way to have that dialogue, not only with me, but with other people all over the world. So it's part of the beauty of modern technology. So let's use that, shall we? All right. Lesson 136 in the workbook for students has a lot of commentary associated with it. And it's another one of these powerful and resonant ideas. We've been doing many of these here in the workbook. Last week, we looked at forgiveness in quite a lot of detail. And in lesson 135, the last time I was live, we looked at the idea that if I defend myself in any way, I am attacked. Today, we look at another equally powerful idea, and what I'm about to say comes right out of the course itself. I didn't make this up. So it should challenge your ego. It's designed to scare the crap out of it, actually. So if that happens to you, mission accomplished. I would be glad if I were you. If you're watching this, your ego's already on the run anyway. So, yeah, I mean, you've reached a point here at this point where it's no longer going to pretend that it's your friend and try to woo you back into a life of suffering. Yeah, no more of that, right? All right, so lesson 136 is another one of those powerful ideas. Sickness is a defense against the truth. Sickness is a defense against the truth. Well, let's say some about this. Sickness, we're talking in any form, is a defense against the truth. So we've seen already here on some of these lives that the idea is prevalent throughout A Course in Miracles. Why? Because it's true that you are not a body. We'll see that again. We'll see that again in quite a bit of detail. And even if you never hear this statement again from me, you will most definitely hear it from someone else. Until you have the experience, the constant experience of its truth. You are not a body. Sickness is a defense against the truth. What does this mean? It means that we're defending ourselves against our own awakening. Oh, yeah, harsh, isn't it? And what this means is each and every one of us, if we're not currently, we have been so terrified about our own awakening, so resistant to the presence, what we call the intrusion of truth into our worldly existence, into our egoic existence, individual existence. We're so resistant to the truth that we hide from it. This is harsh to hear. Now, you may actively resist this. If you do, no problem. No problem. In fact, that's good. That's good if you do. That means that the ego's on the run. Should be. There's nowhere for it to run anyway. It's not real. So we defend ourselves against the experience of the truth. We defend ourselves against recognition that we're one with God. One with, yes. God being love extends itself, himself, herself, whichever pronoun you want to use right there. Yeah. We defend ourselves against this. Why? We've so identified with a separate sense of self that anything that seems to contradict that is very frightening. We think it's going to kill us. It's going to end this physical body. It's going to end life as we know it. We say ridiculous things, and they are ridiculous things, aren't they, to ourselves. We resist meditation because we convince ourselves that in order to successfully meditate, you have to abandon your entire life, take up monastic robes, become a monk or a nun, and fly off to Nepal to seclude ourselves for the rest of this existence in a monastery, eating a couple of grains of rice a day. That's not the case, is it? So why do we delude ourselves like that? Why? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because we're afraid, quite frankly. Every now and then in life, we get glimpses of the truth. Now, these, I hope, are beautiful, wonderful, and energizing, exhilarating experiences for you, but they don't always land that way, do they? They can freak us out. They can freak us out. And one of the things we do is we retreat. We retreat back into our ego identification. In other words, we retreat back into the physical body identification. We retreat back into our identification with our career, with our marital status, with our gender, with our ethnic group, with our nationality, whatever that is. We so subdivide and categorize reality to make it completely diffuse, and we're confused, utterly and 100% confused, running around thinking we're something we're not, and literally defending ourselves against it. It's like we want to believe that we're a body so much that we make it real for ourselves. It gets sick. So let's think about what sickness is. If everything that we're looking at is symbolic, which by the way it is, everything we're looking at here in the world is symbolic. When we see something beautiful, it's symbolic of our wholeness. It's symbolic of our abundance as Christ. Christ is the extension of God. We, each and every one of us, are Christ, or if you prefer, from the Greek, the Christ, which is where the term came from, the extension of God. Now we, of course, commonly refer to Jesus as Christ, and often and unfortunately limit Christ to just the historical Jesus. So that's not all the picture. We defend ourselves against this. We try to convince ourselves that we're something other than what we really are. And the funny thing is, we know deep down in our hearts that we're deluding ourselves, yet everything seems so real to us. We've chosen to make it real. We made all this. We made all this. God, being perfect love, does not set us up to fail. We do that to ourselves, which can be sobering. Yeah, it's a sobering reality. However, at the same time, and I invite you to see it this way, if you're able, it's beautiful, it's empowering. Because if we made all this, we can unmake it. We can choose to see it for what it is. We see in people's attack thoughts, in supposed opposition, our own unconscious guilt and fear. What is forgiveness but an opportunity to see that and release it? But when we see something beautiful here in the world, rather than become attached to it and try to possess it or identify with it, we can simply tell ourselves that it's symbolic of our oneness with God. Yeah, it's symbolic of our true wholeness, our limitlessness. It's a beautiful way of looking at it. Then we can literally train our minds to see it that way. We can train our minds to forgive. It does become a habit if you make the decision to do it. We always have the power of decision. So truth is what it is, and it doesn't go anywhere. We could choose not to experience it. That's what sickness is. It's a defense against the truth. Again, this is an idea that comes up again and again in the workbook for students, the idea that we're not a body. It comes up again and again. Why? Because we're going to be resistant to that. Especially at first. If this is the first time you're hearing something like this, I completely expect that it might be shocking to you. And the workbook even says, it says right in the first couple of pages, some of these ideas you might be actively resistant to. I'm saying this with a total smile on my face and kind of laughing, because I know what that's like. I know what that's like, right? We've invested so much in the values of the world, and what has that gotten us? Really, has it gotten us true limitlessness? Has it gotten us a constant, permanent sense of our reality in God, one with God, limitless, totally loving at all times with no opposites? Of course it hasn't. It hasn't. We get glimpses. Now, it's a beautiful thing. If you've had glimpses of our reality, it can be a beautiful thing. Now, it can also freak people out. So this is why we appear to be awakening gradually. So it doesn't freak us out. Now, if you do get freaked out, all right, so be it. Everybody has been there. But through repeated spiritual practice, through repeated exposure to ideas like this, we begin to, somewhere in our minds, think, okay, there's something more to it than this. Yeah, my heart's telling me, my gut's telling me that there's something more to it than what I'm doing. There's got to be a better way. Well, there is. There is. And in the thought system of A Course in Miracles, forgiveness is that way. So let me say a couple words here before I wrap up about practice periods for these very strong, very foundational, very powerful ideas that we're talking about here in the workbook. We restate the day's idea. It's a prayer, really. A practice period with this is a prayer where you sit down and recite the following language. This is in italics, by the way, in the commentary in the workbook, which you can find either in a book. If you have the actual physical copy of A Course in Miracles, it's in there. This is lesson 136 in the workbook. You can also find this information online. All right. So we sit down and we recite the idea. Yeah. Sickness is a defense against the truth. I will accept the truth of what I am and let my mind be wholly healed today. All right. Sickness is a defense against the truth. I will accept the truth of what I am and let my mind be wholly healed today. And then you sit quietly. You may get answers in the form of feeling. You may have the experience of being more than your body. And you may spend a few minutes with your mind crazy and racing, thinking about tomorrow's dinner and a sales meeting that you have, or the fact that your knee hurts, or you need to itch your toe, or something like that, right? Our mind just, they don't call it monkey mind for nothing, right? It just kind of runs off. So that may be your experience. It's still of innumerable benefit. It's of great benefit even just to recite that idea. But the idea here is to sit quietly and experience this idea. This is what A Course in Miracles is about. This is what spiritual practice is about. Really, the point is not to believe something, it's to experience for ourselves who we really are. These practices help. That's why they're here. Because we need to have practical experience of things for it to sink in. So we accept the truth of what we really are. I think you know what that is. Yeah. And let our minds be totally, wholly healed. So when we suffer, it's the mind that suffers. We could have aches and pains in the physical body and identify with those aches and pains, make them real and a real problem for ourselves, or we could recognize that suffering is of the mind. So just because we have aches and pains, just because we have gray hair and the physical body after a certain number of decades, right, may not have the vigor that it once did when we were 19 or something, then we don't have to suffer as a result of that. Suffering is of the mind. So healing is also of the mind. This is the level at which A Course in Miracles operates here in the world, is healing of the mind. Now, there's also a very powerful, pure, non-dual element to this. In other words, we're talking about ultimate truth here. So what's my suggestion? Well, start where you are. With forgiveness, it's start with what you feel called and capable of forgiving. Called to forgive, capable of forgiving. With this idea, my thought is, I highly recommend that you take the time to read the commentary. We've just been through some of this, but it's most helpful if you take the time to read what Jesus has to say yourself, for yourself, and see what resonates and attempt the practice periods. You make a decision to sit down and really allow the truth of your own limitlessness to make itself known, to show up for you so that you may experience it. And once you begin to have these glimpses, as you may know, there's no going back. And isn't that exciting? I say yes. Yes, it is. All right. So as I bring up the commentary here, definitely let me know that that you're out there. If you have comments or questions, please let me know here. This is one of the things that I really, really enjoy, is to be able to interact with you throughout the day. And if I don't get to anyone's comments or questions here while I'm still live, as you've noticed, it's a short live stream. I'm always done within a half an hour here, no matter how long I may go on. Some days there's a lot to say. And this is a pretty heavy-duty idea. It's pretty full of commentary in the book itself. The commentary itself stretches over a few pages. Why? Because this idea can be really shocking to us as we identify with the ego. This is one of the ideas that really, really is a powerful one. And we may need to hear things 1,000 times before it finally sinks in and we finally make a decision to adopt it and practice. So whatever that looks like, I hope that decision may be today for you. All right. So as always, I'm here with comments or questions. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you here tomorrow. Have a great day.